Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I am your host, Hannah Chapman, and today my guest is Brent Perkins, who is just such a wonderful human. You guys are going to absolutely love this conversation. Brent is a family man and a father, and he is enthusiastically embracing his role in his second season of life, as he puts it, as a guide and a leadership coach who really blends the wisdom of a seasoned CEO, right? Someone who's been in the business world with the transformative power of personal growth and spirituality. And his journey from leading companies to exploring the depths of human potential really allows him to bridge those worlds, merging the drive for business success with our personal true desire for individual significance in this life. So he wrote the book Paper Cuts: The Art of Self-Delusion. And we are going to dive into some really, really cool topics today. So Brent, thank you so much for being here with me for this conversation. And I would love if you would tell the audience a little bit about who you are, how you got to where you got to, and we're going to talk about paper cuts a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah. So glad to be here, Anna. Who am I outside of what you described? Yeah, it's so silly, but I've tried so hard to shed myself of these labels. And that's been
Mm-hmm.
part of my journey, and it's been really, really hard. But I guess today, I'm an author. Uh, I'm a guide. I'm a coach. I really enjoy creating things and learning, and then just sharing my journey with the world, those that want to walk next to me and do it together. So how did I get here? Chasing, a lot of chasing. Mostly because probably like a lot of us want to make my parents happy, wanted to succeed in the eyes of the world. So started businesses, worked my way up the ladder, sat in the CEO chair for 10 years, did all the things to chase success, marriage, kids, money, all the things. And of course, that's what landed me in writing a book about death by 1,000 paper cuts ultimately, and us talking today.
Mm. Yes. And one thing I wanted to pull from what you just said was this, this feeling of labels of who am I exactly?
Mm.
Where I can 100% identify with that. Like, who am I in this moment? I don't know. I'm doing a podcast. I'm a mom. I'm going to take my kids to their, meet the teacher night. I'm so much more than any label at any given moment. And I think there's always an and, right? Like,
Of course.
and here are some of the things that I'm really passionate about. Um, and so one of the things that you're really passionate about that we're going to weave into this conversation as well are entrepreneurial and high achieving fathers, right? And
Yeah,
so,
it's been a big focus of mine lately, mostly because it, I think all we can do is share our own experiences in this world. And the most profound experience I've gone through is this chasing success as a man and building to what the world says are all the things we should build to, and having it all crumble in front of me, and I'm
mm,
almost falling apart and rebuilding it, and wanting to just share that with other men who, you know most women, if you talk to them, you ask how many friends do you have that you either called this week or shared something with, and usually it's a couple to sometimes a dozen. And you ask men, and the answer is usually zero.
mm,
Maybe we go have a beer and have beer talk, but that's not a depth.
yeah.
And there's, in general, men don't have this outlet. And I am hugely passionate around helping men find that outlet, whatever that looks like for them.
Mm. Okay. So as we talk through this, one of the things in our conversations before we started recording, in our previous conversation, one of the things I really noticed as we were talking, and it literally didn't dawn on me until I was like saying the words to you, which is so fascinating, is that high achieving men and high achieving women actually experience a lot of the same issues. And we have what I have noticed, or what I feel like, is quite a lot of spaces, like you're saying, like groups for women entrepreneurs, for women, who are high achievers, for women who are experiencing burnout, for women who are experiencing, like workplace trauma, whatever it is. We actually have really like good resources. They're pretty easy to find if you look for them. Um, and there are a lot fewer for men. There are a lot fewer resources for community, for men in particular, that take this holistic approach of, I want my business to fit with my life.
Yeah.
I want to have like holistic success, not just monetary success and success that looks like success to your neighbors. I wanna feel it. I wanna feel it in my body and experience it. And what I noticed when we were talking before is that, oh, we're actually, like, talking about the exact same issues. It's just that the language that we utilize with women is a little bit different from the language that you utilize with men to reach them, right? To actually, like, um, what do I wanna say? Like, guide the transformation. Help guide them through their own self-transformation.
Yeah, 100%. You know, since we're talking about business here, we'll kind of make a broad sweeping, or I will make a broad sweeping categorization around men and women in business in general. And most of us, both sides, um, we are living in an unhealthy masculine. Men are doing it in different ways than women are doing it, but business, it feels like, requires this masculine energy, and it's usually not a healthy or productive side to it that either genders, or whatever genders in the middle here, steps into. And that's where then the languaging comes in, and we pull apart, what do men, specifically fathers, how do they need to do it a little bit differently, and how do moms or mothers or other women need to do it in their own way. But it's ultimately finding the healthy masculine and feminine energy, and it is spoken about differently. So that's why it's a little nuanced.
Oh my gosh, I'm, like, literally biting my tongue. So, like, ah, yes, that, that resonates so, so strongly in my heart. And I know, for me, um, creating my business the way, especially X squared, wealth planning, because it is in such a masculine dominated field, um, unhealthy masculine. For sure, like, a lot in finance, right? That's, like, 99% of what people meet is that unhealthy masculine, um, and coming from women as well, right? That is what I noticed. It wasn't just the men, it was the women too that were in that, hyper competitive, hurting others to succeed, like, what is the norm?
Mhm.
And treating clients, that real paternalistic, like, but in a, oh, what's the word I'm trying to say? Um, Patronizing way. "I know what to do, you sit down and be quiet. Like, just do what I say,
Mhm.
and things are gonna be you'll be fine if you just do everything I say, and if you don't do what I say, then you're in real trouble." Right? There's that whole attitude to the entire industry that when I was able to extract myself and go into an independent space, I feel like that is actually what has, helped my business grow as much as it has grown, is me being able to find my healthy balance between healthy masculine expression and healthy feminine expression, the balance between both of those things. So yeah, just literally all the things you said. So beautiful.
Yeah, and I think balance may be the key theme to our conversation today, because there's a few topics we're going to get into outside of just this masculine and feminine, where balance is so key. And from a male angle, from a father's angle in this masculine, the unhealthy masculine, the wounded masculine looks whiny, looks like they're not in their power, they're not in their like this man who's strong. And there are communities, there's events and places to go where you can go become like that warrior man. And I feel like, okay, that's fine, but that swings the pendulum to the opposite side of unhealthy on its own. Like all these are not like silos, right? They all make up a percentage of how we blend it together. And for me, the healthy masculine really is about how do you get grounded?
Mm.
Like that's the primary goal of, I believe, in masculinity. And where the masculine can be strong is that you're steady, you're grounded. We're in deep femininity, you're in flow. The masculine is that grounding point, but not in a shameful way, not in a power play way. Um, and so it just comes down to this balance, and that's not talked about enough as we talk about healthy masculine, healthy feminine.
Mm. I this is like making me remember, over these last several years. I mean, I think we're at almost 120 episodes on the podcast now. This has been like I don't wanna say battle cry, but over and over, like, this has been this balance, finding balance. When we talk about, I've talked to people about polarity or, the masculine and the feminine and all of that. I'm like, "You know what? I believe that I am whole. I believe that I am a whole person within myself, and my job is to find my balance within me so that I can then hold space for someone else to find their balance." Be a steady presence. And so I've had many experiences of my own of, like you're saying, the masculine holds steady and the feminine has, this beautiful flow. And so for myself, when I have felt that, it's been, okay, how can I hold space for myself?
Hmm.
How can I allow myself, allow my emotions, allow things to flow and allow like have my own comforting presence within me. And I also, within that, when learning that, also learned how to allow my husband
Hmm.
to hold that space for me when I need to fall apart and he can be there to hold me. Right? Like it actually it was difficult before I learned to do this for myself within myself. It was difficult for me to allow him to, like, fully comfort me, and now, like, I'm gonna have so many examples of it. Even what's today? Monday, or Tuesday, literally yesterday, we had a moment where I have been holding on to a lot for a couple of weeks, and I just needed to let it out, and I he just held me, right? And was like, yeah, it's okay." These different things that happen. So I was sick for a couple of weeks. I was sick on my birthday, and he's like, "It sucks. It's okay." Um, but it's so interesting to see how I couldn't allow that
Hmm.
level of support from him until I was able to feel whole within myself.
Well, that also speaks wonders for your husband too, because you wouldn't feel comfortable to do that if he hadn't gotten to a place in his life where he didn't need anything from you in that moment and he was able to fully give.
Right. It's so, so true. It's so true. Um, so from your perspective, then when we talk about leadership, like I think this is a perfect lead into to this leadership and leading. Um, right? It's this. Well, I actually would like you to tell a little bit more of your story. Why paper cuts came to be, right? The
Yeah.
leader that you were, and why you're a different leader now.
So what I learned along the way was that while we're all having experiences, we may not be present for those experiences, not all the way, right? our mind processes something like 4 bits of information a second, and our senses take in like 6 million pieces of information every second. So there's this disconnect automatically where, we're trying to intellectualize our experiences. Like they're hard to know in the moment, but you think about them and then you apply a story to them. Oh, this is what just happened. And you lock that story in and it builds your life around it. And for me, this is where the paper cuts come in. And this is where I came up with or play with the art of self-delusion, because what story I just locked in, I was deluding myself. They're all delusions because it's whatever we want it to be. Right? I could reflect back 10 years from now and be like, oh, I knew in my core, in my heart, in my gut, wherever resonates for you, that this certain thing happened. And as I reflect back and learn more, or hear more stories, or can just open up differently, I actually realize the opposite happened. I think we all have stories like this in our lives. And while it's easy on a couple of bigger things in our lives to look at, this actually happens every day, all day long. Yeah, I see it when I'm talking to one of my daughters who's telling me a story or reacting to me, and I'm reacting back. And I have to take a step back and go, huh, I wonder where she's actually coming from. What if what looks negative is actually positive because I'm her safe place? And you start thinking through what could the other side to this story look like if I chose to believe it. I may not, but it's interesting to start exploring the other side, because otherwise I found that I didn't know. I was searching for this big T trauma and it was nowhere. For me, it was just 1,000 paper cuts from all the stories I was telling myself over and over and over again, until I stepped out of my own experiences and said, wait a minute, I don't want to experience life in this way anymore. And just like that, it flipped. And I could see things differently. And that began this next journey in life, this next stage.
So what were you when you were the CEO, when you were, leading companies, what were you feeling that let you know that, this death by a thousand paper cuts was
It,
happening?
no matter how much I chased, no matter what award we got, Inc. 5000 list, or got a new investor for $10 million, or, created a new product and launched it successfully, or, whatever, it was, it felt like nothing. Like it was wonderful for 5 minutes. And it was always chasing, it was always the next thing. And then there was always the next problem. And then that transferred over into my personal life. And that's how things were running as you're raising, for me anyways, raising, kids, and them going, through the different stages of life. And my kids are now 16 and 20 as we're recording this. Um, but it was everywhere. Well, I let that bleed over into everything, and just realizing where's the joy? Where is the it's enough? Where is the no one's judging this for real? It's just my own inner critic that's telling me some shameful story.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is it's still not good enough. It's still not good enough. I'm still not good enough,
Mm.
which is super interesting when I did, side story here. I in April of 2023, so last, maybe a year, almost a year and a half ago. At this point, I did an ayahuasca journey. Um, and they were asking like, what are you letting go?
Yeah.
What are you letting go of here? And I was still I think we're, like, always in a stage of growth, but I was definitely in a stage of letting go, like, the unhealthy masculine was definitely, like, I was letting go of that, working on that at that time, and the thing that immediately came to me to let go of, to put into the fire was, the belief that I am not enough, and that's all I wrote, right? Like, that was it, like, that felt very true for me at the moment. And one of our guides at the time, there was a man and a woman, they're married. And the man, when it came to my turn and I said that that was what it was, he was like, that's a very masculine wound. that we usually we were a whole group of women. We were only women there together at that
Mm,
retreat. But they do a lot, do a lot of retreats and a lot of time
of course.
there are men
Yeah.
there, and they're like, that's usually, a wound that we see men releasing. And I was like, "What do you okay, that's I'm gonna have to sit with that for a minute." And it did, and it came up a lot through that journey. This, wound of I am not enough.
I I think this lack of self-love is debatably the number one issue facing most people. And it can show up as not enough for many different areas, but uh, it's so difficult in with technology today as well too, um, because you know comparison and judgment are what keep us from really stepping into full self-love, and that's what every social media platform is built on.
Mhm.
It is the underpinning to it all. It's why they are successful and make money. So it's almost like we're being driven to not step into that piece, which is for me, it was like the beginning of that journey. We're being held back.
Yes. Yeah, I fully agree with that and feel like, um, especially in, like, the social media landscape, in, a lot of times in selling, right? Like, being business owner and having different offerings, right? There's, like, the quote unquote conventional wisdom is you talk to the pain points and you make people feel like they're missing something that you have the answer for, right? So why you have to build that buying energy of why do they want to pick you? And the more that I feel whole within myself, that doesn't resonate. I can't sell that way. And I also like people who are trying to sell to me that way. I'm like, it doesn't work. Like that energy is gone. It doesn't work when you feel, again, this wholeness, this balance within yourself, and then we can and at the same time to hit this point home, it doesn't mean that we don't still, like, get intrigued by the next thing, right? And wanna experience more of life and want to, um make more memories or, have the experience of, like, "Oh, I wanna create this group," and, like, y all of that creation can still happen within this place of, "I am enough. I love who I am. I love the life that I'm living," and, like, "Ooh, here's this new thing that my energy is really pulling me towards." Um, and I feel that there's a shift happening, kind of. I don't know if it's globally or, like, I think we are seeing the embers, like, the sparks of this change. What do you think?
100%. And in this, in I've created this kind of fun framework in that vein around how to step into a healthy masculine. And even though I teach it mostly to men, it's just it works for all of humanity, whether whether you're a man or a woman. And it's fun and playful, which is something also missing from a lot of our us business folk.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what gender, it's just fun, just straight up fun and play, right? So this acronym that I use is teaching people how to shag. Yeah,
Yep.
S.H.A.G. And there's this playful side to it, and I find that especially in business, I don't know why. And I don't have data to back this up, but I have this feeling because I've just at all the people I've talked to, like our sexuality is the most distorted amongst business people. We have the least time to explore it. We're ashamed of it. It feels really prevalent. And even though this model doesn't get into that at all, it is meant to like kind of bring it to the surface to say, it's really important to explore that piece of who we are too.
Mm.
But what shag means is number one, show up and surrender. right? It's this letting go that you just spoke to. But it's also being there in the present moment, right? So that's step one. Step two is hold space and boundaries. Because when you're present, when you've let go, now you can actually show up for other people and for yourself, which is the holding space and boundaries, right?
Mm.
A is ask and receive. You can't really do this well until you have kind of humbled yourself, gotten out of your own way, started to love yourself, because then you can truly um, ask for what you need and receive it, which, especially for men, women too, all of us, like, receiving is not easy when especially if we're providers, whether we're moms or dads, right? And what's crazy is we think that it's kind of stoic and cool to not have to, "Oh, I don't need anything. I'm
Not have
good."
needs.
Right.
Yeah.
And what stinks is that giving and receiving, they're not separate. Like they're part of an equation, and receiving is 50% of the equation. So if you don't receive, you're actually stealing somebody else's gift. You're stealing the ability for them to give, which is an interesting perspective to think through sometimes. At least it's been for me. So this last one is give gratuitously. And I know as men in particular, especially, this provider mindset in the unhealthy masculine, we flip this formula. Oh, I give first. What are you giving? Because you got nothing in the tank to give. You got no healthy part of you to give. Nobody wants what there is for you to give until you figure these other things out, which is why I got to flip it back around.
Mm, my goodness. Yeah. That, first of all, that framework, I love that. I love that. And I think what's so interesting, um, with what you're talking about here with, in women's circles, we talk about sensuality. And, so that's more the lens that we put
Yeah.
on it. Again, talking, the languages that resonate with different people. And it's super interesting how important that is. It is so, so important, and it's really hard to talk about in mixed company. There are so many, um okay, now that you're, sharing this, because we hadn't talked about this before, right? But this is it. This is one of the reasons why it is so powerful to have men's groups and to have women's groups. It's not because we actually need to be separate. I think it's so, so powerful when we can come together, and just be together in a space. But to have these sort of conversations about healthy sensuality, healthy sexuality, healthy femininity, healthy masculinity, until you are, really, really comfortable, again, comfortable with yourself, that conversation is so hard for people who are at the beginning of their journey to have with the opposite gender. And so it feels safer to explore that and to talk about that and to talk about your experience. And we have different experiences as well, right? Women have different experiences, typically being the submissive or submitted gender in that equation. Um, and men have other wounds from being like, I'm supposed to be the initiator. I'm supposed to be the one, right? Like those are different wounds. Like in that area, I think more so than in the business realm. Like in the business realm, we're dealing with some similar stuff, right? It's actually really, really parallel. But in the sensuality sector,
Very different. Yeah.
they are very different. And if we're
And
gonna
yet they show up in this way where we end up both sides blocking ourselves. So the
Mhm.
results in the same thing, but yes, it is a different wound from a different angle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so to have space, and I bring that up because, I have several businesses, right? And one of them is a co-creation, called Expansive Visionaries Collective with my, business partner, Alex Pursglove, who she is an amazing business coach, and she's only ever coached women. She's never coached men,
Mhm.
and that's where she feels best, and that's where she's always grown. I in X squared, I mine it's about half and half between men and women. I like people are drawn to me from both sides and married couples and singles in both sides. Um, and so for me, like in creating Expansive Visionaries Collective, it felt weird to say this is a space for women. I was like, but men need this too. Men need this safe space. They need this space to like explore. And when we got more into it, Alex was still, she's feeling like, hey, if we're going to talk about sensuality in any way, I know that women are not going to be as comfortable having these conversations if there are men in the room,
Mhm.
especially if they're earlier on in the learning journey. And she's right. She's absolutely right.
Same goes for men, though.
Right.
Same goes for men. So, I mean, there's so many stigmas and stereotypes to work through. And the cool part is this: there's so much good content and teachers and just material out there that is pushing this in the right direction. And it's still hard to get traction in a healthy way because somebody I heard this today actually in something I was listening to. And it's like in a healthy relationship, sex matters about 10%. That's how much the equation it is, right? When sex is good and it's healthy. And when sex is unhealthy, it is 90% of the relationship,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So it's this weird piece that we don't want to talk about it because if it's great, it's not everything and it can't build a relationship off of it, but it is the thing that will destroy all of it and suck all the energy out of it if it's not addressed and talked about and communicated and we have a healthy relationship with it. So it's really important.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that quote too. Um, and it does. It that feels so resonant. And um it's so interesting in the work that I do because finances talking about finances, right? That's the other big taboo, right? That kind of the joke in the industry is that people will talk about sex before they will talk about money. Or if you're
Mhm.
dating, they will have sex before they talk about how much money they make, right? Like there's these are both like such tender taboo topics that it's hard to be vulnerable and open about. And so this ability to hold space for these most tender of conversations, um, that's a thing, that I do find that when people on my side, when people are able to be open about their finances and all the feelings that come up from that, everything else kind of comes out too. Like it's super interesting. It's really, really interesting. And that's a very I know from your seat and tell me if you feel the same. It's such it feels like such an honor
Mm.
to be able to hold that space for someone to express for the first time, right? Some of these things that they've been holding on to for so long and are ready to move away from or ready to it's almost like the better thing is like to metabolize
Hmm.
and grow from rather than throw away, right? To
Yeah,
to to grow
and
out of.
this is something that happens, as we hit kind of midlife and on, call it 35, 40 and on. But I find in myself and so many people that I'm able to have this discussion with that we don't want to be on our deathbed going, why did I hold back my whole life? Why didn't I live all out? How did it serve me to keep that hidden? Um, and it's true, it festers and some people say it causes cancers and it causes diseases. Um, when however it works, it's definitely not healthy and
Mhm.
it definitely doesn't serve us in any fashion of life.
No, yeah, it's the way that I see it play out with clients especially is and especially clients in relationship. Um whether they're married or, just like extremely close partners, it's the holding back, right? Of the not like you're like holding your words in. You're just always swallowing it down. Always, just nope, we're just going to bury that and bury that and bury that. And that only works for so long, right? When you are abandoning yourself by not saying what you need to say, by not allowing yourself to fully feel what you're feeling, right? That's a self-abandonment that once you from your framework, even what I'm hearing from you, right? This once you see that, once you see how you're abandoning yourself over and over again, that's where you can become present. That's when you can see, okay, this is where I truly am, and this is the person I want to be. This is the leader I want to be. This is the father I want to be. This is the mother I want to be. But it comes from first not abandoning yourself anymore.
You are speaking to kind of the idea behind the current book I'm working on. And it's really around this. So, so what came out of paper cuts for me at the end of it was, how do you start to prioritize yourself? How do you look at, that you matter, that you've got to fill your cup, put the oxygen mask on, take care of you, so then you have something to give, something to share that's healthy with other people in your life, right? And when I start talking about prioritizing yourself, it doesn't land well with most people. It feels really selfish. And so what I'm trying to pull apart in the framework of this next book is, you know, I think become giving overall is the pinnacle of life, right? And even in leadership, some people say it's servant leadership, but whether it's that or it's some level of serving others, giving to others, taking care of others, that is the pinnacle. And it can't be the only way and the only thing you do. And I think that's where servant leadership falls short, is it's like, if I give, then everything else will fall into place. And I think that's false. Because again, you can't give if you've never given to yourself, because you are as important as everybody else. And in fact, because you only control you, you can only control how healthy and how full and how balanced you are. And when you're whole, all you don't have to give anything. You just have to show up. You literally just show up. And you're so whole, you're so balanced, you don't need anything. People feel you vibrating in the room and they're like, what is over? Like, that person feels great. I can tell they're not judging me. They don't need anything from me. They're not trying to control me or manipulate me. Like, I want to talk to them. They feel magnetic. And did they give anything? No, they just gave their time themselves because they gave it to themselves first. So going from, let's not talk about selfish leadership and let's not talk about selfless leadership. Let's talk about this leadership in the middle where we take care of ourselves. And when we just show up after doing that, that's when everything else falls into place. And that's when what people are trying to achieve through servant leadership actually happens
Ah, so good.
sustainably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, so I would love to okay, first of all, when is that book coming out? And then second of all, because we'll
Oh
have
boy.
another conversation about that one, like, specifically. Um, and then second of all, like, where can people find out more? Where if men are listening to this and they're like, "Okay, I need to know more about that." What's the group? Like, all of the things. How can
Yeah.
people find you?
So the company I started a year and a half ago, as I stepped out of this CEO career, this role in my life, is 3xbold.com. From there, there's a mastermind I'm kicking off here in September, although we'll get new people in every month. It's specifically for fathers and those that are looking to synthesize how to be a father, lover, and leader without, the time being an obstacle to be great at all three. There's a there's a free thing. If you go to 3xbold.com/toolkit, there's two things. There's my 5 favorite tools on how to take care of and calm your inner world so you can handle the outer chaos. And that's the first actionable step you can take to start showing up,
Mm.
to start to feel like what's it like to let go of just that little baby tiny thing over there. You can't do it until you're calm and able to let that go. And that's what these kind of 5 under 3 minutes each tools are. And the second part of that free gift is that if there's a private link to an audio recording of my book on YouTube. You're welcome to go buy it on Audible or on Amazon if you want, but there's also a free link there. So those are great places to start.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And I like the thing that's like coming up for me as I think about um EVC, Expansive Visionaries Collective, and this beautiful space that Alex and I have created for women is like that's I feel like there's another that space for men that's doing that same work, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, there has to be like collaboration there as well, right? Like there's so much beauty in getting to meet other people who are interested in, right? I think that's where so much more like the magic happens faster when you're able to share your journey with other people.
Mm.
And I noticed that especially in group settings, people one person will be talking or receiving from the group if it's a mastermind session, and all of these other members are like, oh my gosh, that's me, right? Or I resonate so much with
Yeah.
this thing, like I've this happened to me in this way, right? And so it's like we don't even we don't even recognize at first that when we allow ourselves to receive fully, like it's not even just for us.
Mm.
Right, when we receive fully, and then we'll put it in a group setting, um, other people are then, like, receiving as well, right? There's just when our channel is open, like, it means that other people are also benefiting from that, and so men, again, coming back to the beginning of our conversation today, women tend to look for those groups, look for that support. Um, and men don't always know that that's available to them. They don't know how to be vulnerable in a group necessarily, especially when you're high achieving, right? I got it together.
Especially, yeah.
I don't need help.
I do want to plug one more thing because like the work I do is not around building a community. It's around really walking hand in hand with these men, sharing vulnerably the story to for them to get to this place that that's where they're at. I'm part of another group called Front Row Dads. It's a little more
Mm.
broader of a community, and it is a true sense of a community, about 350 men around the world. And it's family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. And it really has been a core support for me and for a lot of other men who are starting out on this journey. And I really highly recommend you check out Front Row Dads as well.
Oh, beautiful. And all of those links will be in the show notes, both to to the website, to the toolkit, to the audiobook, to Front Row Dads. We'll put all of that in there. And as always, everyone knows I say this every single time. I love getting your feedback. I love hearing what resonates for you. If you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share, with Brent or with me, we would absolutely love to hear from you from this conversation. So don't be shy, reach out. And that, is the building block of community, the building block of getting and receiving support is just reaching out, letting people know what you're thinking. So, Brent, thank you so much for being here with me today. I loved this conversation and I love that we went a different direction, right? Like we went in the directions we meant to, but we also like added even more to the conversation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thanks, Hannah.
We will see y'all again soon. And don't forget to, let us know. Let us know what resonates. Thanks, everyone. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.